Hi everyone! Today we will briefly be looking at your novel for this term, The Story of Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. Now before we get into the book, a little bit about the author. Sir James Barrie was a Scottish novelist and playwright, best known for being the creator of Peter Pan, which was created in 1904 as a play and then written into a novel. And later, the copyrights to the creation was given by Sir James Barrie to the Ormond Street Hospital for Children in London, which continues to benefit today from his donation. Now, the first two chapters discuss how one day, Mrs. Darling notices a little boy at her window. The next day, Nana the dog notices him too and shuts the window so quickly that she cuts off the boy's shadow, which is then kept in a drawer. Meanwhile, in an attempt to cheer up an upset Michael, Mr. Darling plays a joke on Nana, but the children instead feel sorry for Nana and do not laugh. Mr. Darling angrily sends Nana away and puts the children to bed. Without Nana there to close the window, the mysterious little boy and a little ball of light enter the children's room. What happens next is that the little ball of light was actually a fairy named Tinker Bell who was helping the boy, Peter, get his shadow back. Now awake, Wendy helps attach the shadow back to Peter. Wendy then offers Peter a kiss, but Peter has no idea what a kiss is and takes Wendy's thimble instead. Peter then returns the kiss by giving Wendy a button, which she wears on a necklace. Peter turns out to be the leader of the Lost Boys of Never Never Land, who are boys that are lost by their mothers. Peter tells Wendy about fairies before saying that he must go now, because the Lost Boys need their bedtime story. It turns out that Peter was listening to the children's bedtime stories every night so that he could tell his bedtime stories to the boys. Wendy begs Peter to stay, and Peter asks if Wendy could come to Never Never Land. Excited, the children all agree to go. Meanwhile, Captain James Hook was an evil pirate whose arm had been cut off by Peter long ago. The cut-off arm was eaten by a crocodile, who decided the arm was so delicious that he must eat the rest of Captain Hook. Captain Hook spends his days looking for Peter for revenge while constantly running away from the crocodile. Meanwhile, the Lost Boys spot Wendy flying down to them. Tinker Bell jealously tells the boys to shoot Wendy, and they unquestioningly shoot Wendy. Peter then arrives to see Wendy hurt, and he is furious until he realizes Wendy survived because the arrow actually hit her button necklace. Peter banishes Tinker Bell and builds Wendy a little house. There, Wendy promises the boys she would do her best to be their mother. Now, one day, Peter takes the children to the Mermaid's Lagoon. There, Peter sees the Indian princess, Tiger Lily, had been captured by the pirates. Peter tricks the pirates into releasing the princess, causing Captain Hook to be enraged. He decides he will kill the boys and make Wendy his own mother. Hearing this, Peter fiercely fights Captain Hook, who quickly runs away when the crocodile finds him. Wendy and the boys then spend merry days alongside Tinker Bell, who had returned from banishment. One night, Wendy tells the boys a certain bedtime story that Peter doesn't like. This was because, in the story, Wendy says she would always be able to return home because her window would always be open, something that was not true for Peter when he tried returning home. Shocked, the children decide they must return home at once. Peter refuses to go home with them, and the children prepare to leave. However, the pirates suddenly attack and capture all the children unbeknownst to Peter, who thought they all went safely home. Captain Hook then poisons Peter's water and sneaks away. Tinker Bell warns Peter by diving into the poisoned water, and after saving Tinker Bell from the poison, Peter prepares to rescue Wendy. On the pirate ship, Captain Hook threatens Wendy, who refuses to become Hook's mother. Suddenly, the pirates hear the crocodile approaching and they let go of the boys in shock. However, the crocodile sounds were being made by Peter, who was coming to save the children. Taking advantage of the chaos, Peter finds the key that unbinds the boys, and the boys quickly arm themselves. Then Peter frees Wendy, and the boys sneak up on the pirates, who are so shocked they all immediately run away. Peter fights Hook for the last time, who slips and falls straight into the crocodile's mouth, who had follows Peter's crocodile sounds right up to the pirate ship. While the boys celebrate the victory, Hook escapes the crocodile and vows to never bother Peter again. The children finally fly home and find their window was still open. Mrs. Darling is overjoyed to see the children home and quickly agrees to adopt the rest of the lost boys. However, Peter still insists he doesn't want to grow up and asks if he can take Wendy back to Never Never Land. Mrs. Darling decides that Wendy may instead visit Peter in Never Never Land for a week once a year. Afterwards, time had passed. The children all grew up and forgot how to fly. Peter did not return to Wendy for a very long time. One night, however, Peter finally comes back to Wendy, who is horrified to see that she had all grown up. However, she sees Jane, Wendy's young daughter, and Wendy allows Peter to take Jane back to Never Never Land. Afterwards, Peter returns every so often for the daughters of Wendy to be his mother. So that was the end of the book. I hope you can now go ahead with this term with a little bit more understanding of the stories in the book. Thank you for listening to this short summary.